My name is Shantell Martin, and I'm the host of What's the Point? This is a conversation series dedicated to exploring why artists create art and the forces that influence us. Join me as I sit down with artists and friends to talk about their reasons for doing what they do and why they continue to create. I'm very happy to introduce today's guest, Tommy Mitchell, an artist who finds himself between Baltimore and Los Angeles. His artistry began as a young kid when he would draw sports cards, comics, cartoons, and anything else that interested him. As he got older, he was inspired and began studying tattoo artists like Mr. Cartoon. Self-taught and using a ballpoint pen as his main instrument, Tommy now creates captivating portraits. Please welcome Tommy Mitchell. So Tommy, it's been a while since I saw you last.
Definitely been a while.
Thank you so much for coming on and being a guest here.
Yeah.
And we were just saying outside, it's been probably a few years since I saw you last.
It's 2020, literally right before the pandemic.
Yeah, I think February 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot's changed since then.
Oh my gosh.
You're in LA?
Back and forth.
Back and forth,
yeah.
Back and forth between?
Baltimore and LA.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And so the series here, I love to sit down with artists and talk about kind of how you got there.
Sure.
Why art is important for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope is selfishly for myself, it might help answer some of these existential crises that I have
Right.
about what's the point in making art and why I do it. And so I figure if I sit down with creative friends and hear about why you make art and why you create, that might inspire me to understand why I started in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I'd love to know kind of a first interaction or experience that you had with art, perhaps as a child.
I know as a kid, I used to watch, I'm sure the majority of artists used to draw or watch cartoons, read comics, etc. And for me, I was so engulfed by everything I saw. I'm like, I wanted to replicate and recreate that. So yeah, that was like my original introduction to the arts was maybe Thundercats, G.I. Joe, He-Man, and just seeing these epic figures. I'm like, man, I want to be like them, but also like, I'm just doodling and sketching. I'm like, oh wow, like this looks pretty cool. Like this is fun. I felt empowered at a young age to like just create. And obviously here we are 30-something years later, I'm still doing the same thing.
We must be from the same era because I grew up with all of those same cartoons. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, as you said all of those names, I could hear all the theme songs in my head. Like, Thundercats, I go, And I think the interesting thing about some of the cartoons that you mentioned, and I think about this occasionally, is that I think that they all have like a moral thread.
Right.
If you think about He-Man and G.I. Joe and Thundercats, there was like this morality that was kind of threaded through the cartoon. Mm-hmm. Is that something you've ever thought about or picked up on or kind of, contemplated on?
Yes and no. I think as I got older, I understood that and felt that. But when I was a kid, I was just so engulfed by the imagery and so enamored with just like wanting to recreate that and kind of make it my own. That I just was like, you know what, I want to do whatever it takes to be in this field and to just participate. That was so important to me at a young age. It's like, how do I do this? Like, what do I need to do to become a creator or an animator or just someone who can spend their whole day drawing? And thankfully, I learned a little bit more about that path and the dedication it takes to be in that field, and just was willing to do whatever it took to do the same. When
you were watching as a kid, do you have siblings?
Yes. Yeah, they're much older. They were 11, 13, and 16 years older than me. So they were like pretty much out the house as I was coming up. So for me, I'm just flicking channels, watching anything and everything. But they were there to kind of be like, hey, this is, what I used to watch as a kid. Little Rascals. I'm trying to think of another one, but yeah, my siblings kind of were like, "Hey, this is the one to watch," and I've stuck with it.
So you probably had in some of your sketchbooks like a snarf, like drawing.
Snarf, yeah, snarf. with gosh, I wish I could. Chitara. I want to say every time I think of London, I think of Heathrow, obviously, but I think the guy's name was something with a H. But yeah, just doodling all these characters. Gosh, I feel like I'm so old now. I can't remember any of the names, but the GI Joe character in all black, the ninja guy. Can't remember, but yeah, just drawing those figures and wanting to be them, and not only wanting to be them, but wanting to create them and kind of make them my own was very helpful along this journey as an artist.
Do you have any of those drawings around?
Oh yeah. My dad had the vision at a young age. He kept all of those sketches, drawings, etc. Every time I go back home, I kind of check them out. I'm like, man, like who would have thought the kid that did this is doing the works I'm doing now? But everyone has to start from somewhere, and I'm just appreciative and glad, also blessed that he kept those and knew this was going to be my journey.
So when you look back at those as a reflection, and you said, the kid that created these, who would have known that you'll be making the work that you've done now? What makes you kind of give it such a distinction like that?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I guess because I didn't think I'd be on this journey. Like when you're a young kid, especially a black kid, for the most part, we're thought to believe that sports and entertainment is the way out. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be 6 foot, whatever. I'm going to go to the NBA, and art's going to be a thing of the past. But once I didn't grow past 6'2" or whatever, I'm like, okay, what's my other option? I've always loved the arts. Let me follow my passion and pursue that. It's a hard distinction to make, but I just knew I always wanted to be creative and draw. And I've always said at a young age, all I want to do is draw and play basketball. And I think I've worked hard enough where now all I do is draw and play basketball. So
I love that. And so little Tommy, what type of kid was little Tommy?
I think little Tommy's the same as he is as Big Tommy. He's just, he's quiet, he's engaging, he's observant. He just wants to draw, wants to watch a lot of sports, very active, very inquisitive, curious, always wanting to know, more information. I feel like I'm a process guy. I'm always, willing and wanting to learn the process of things. So yeah, I'm glad I'm similar. Obviously, you grow older, you gain wisdom, information, etc. But I'm glad my core things, our core beliefs are still the same.
Yeah, I'm a big process fan as well. What do you love about process?
There's so many things. I mean, I love observing the process. I love learning from the process. I love seeing how things are made. Like, it blows my mind just thinking like, okay, like who came up with these headphones? Like, where did your mind go to create these headphones or to create, this space or et cetera? Like, I'm always thinking of that. Like, where did you have to go, or what did you have to see, or whom did you have to talk to? What did you read to get to the point to create X, Y, Z? So yeah, I'm just a fan of learning and my curiosity and just exploring, really.
And so for those who aren't familiar with your work, can you describe what your work is or what that means to you and how it looks?
Sure, yeah. I'm a portrait artist. I feel like I'm somewhat of an illustrator because I like to add different illustration elements to my work. But for me, I remember having a conversation with my friend Micah however many years ago, and I'm like, man, anyone can create a portrait. It's what else can be done with a portrait? What story am I trying to tell? What along my journey needs to be shared to kind of help someone else on their journey? So yeah, it's obviously my work, but it's also me sharing my, I think, pursuit of perfection and knowing that there's no such thing, but also the execution or the willingness to try has always kept me motivated.
And visually, what's the work look like? How would you describe that?
It's two mediums. Well, one main medium is the ballpoint pen that I use. Shout out to Bic. And I use acrylic paint, but early on I was trying everything under the sun: watercolors, markers, acrylic paint, crayons, so on and so forth. I've always felt like I'm willing to do or willing to use whatever to create the best piece for the vision I have in my head. So yeah, I still have that belief. I'm still trying to become a better painter every day. I'm still trying to become, someone who's better at drawing as well. But yeah, those are the main focal points that help me achieve the vision I'm trying to share.
Growing up in London, I love Bic biros.
Yeah,
I think you see them less here in America.
yeah.
How did you come across them?
That's a great question. So in high school, I was a senior in high school, and there was a freshman, and she was saying that her grandmother uses ballpoint pen. That way she doesn't make mistakes. So as soon as I got home, I was like, aha, I don't want to make mistakes. I want, to make perfect work. So I just found the closest pen that I could, and thankfully it was a Bic at the time. And however many years later, I've been working with Bic since.
Okay, I love that. If I use a ballpoint pen, there's no mistakes.
Right. And I thought about this more recently. I was having a conversation. I'm like, man, like it's as close to tattooing as you can get. If I mess up because I work on watercolor paper mounted on panel, but if I mess up, I mean, I've worked so long now that I can kind of adjust and adapt. But if it's something that it might be too dark or I don't like the way it looks, it's not presenting what I want to achieve, then I have to start over from scratch. And it's not like I can paint over it, I can erase it, anything like that. So I've always taken pride in just knowing that, hey, these works I'd like to think they're amazing, but it's a process. It's a real process to try to, share these works and make sure that they come out the best way they can. But all the other things that no one thinks about, it's really wild to think about. Just there's no coming back. You mess up, great. What are you going to do? You're going to start over, or are you going to, I used to make tattoos over the mistakes I used to make, but now it's just like, no, I'll start over. I'm much more efficient as an artist. So
I can relate to that. So lots of people will ask me, Shantell, you use these, very large ink markers. Mm-hmm. What happens when you make a mistake?
Right.
And quite similarly, I'll say, there's no mistakes, there's only process.
Yep.
And that's also, for myself, working spontaneously, there's no plan. Mm-hmm. So if there's no plan, there's no real final goal.
Right.
So therefore, there is only process. Mm-hmm. So you get to enjoy all of the process, and therefore there's no mistakes, or it's one big mistake and you've just learned to enjoy the process of it all. Right. So I love that and can relate to that. And perhaps I should also start writing with some Bic biros as well.
It's just, and the deeper I think about it, I think so when I think of art, I think of it somewhat of an exclusive thing. And I'll say that to say you have to buy paintbrushes, you have to buy the paints, the panels, so on and so forth. And for me at the time, just a piece of paper and a pen, it's very cheap, quote unquote, it's inclusive. You can just find these things anywhere and create. So for me, like, I always thought, okay, I'm at this point now where I have these tools that, might be frowned upon, et cetera. I mean, the pen aspect, or is not widely used in the arts, but how can I get from point A to point B, where point B is, okay, I can afford panels, I can afford paints, et cetera, to kind of elevate my work and my vision and present it at a different level. So
it's funny, I was having an argument with a friend this week, kind of a very friendly argument. Mm-hmm. But the idea of kind of the art world and market and the gatekeeping within it, and right. What kind of gifts we can have that are accessible to us. And kind of the question was, well, if you're a runner, you can just put a pair of running shoes on and run around the track. Mm-hmm. But if you're an artist, you need to have a gallery, an art advisor, kind of all the materials you've mentioned, except you need people to give you chances. Mm-hmm. And my friend was like, well, if you're in the sports world, you need people to give you chances too. And I said, yes, but that just putting a pair of shoes on and running, you don't need anyone's permission.
Right.
And so we were kind of going back and forth on this. But, I do believe that anyone can pick up a pen and draw. Mm-hmm. But to do anything beyond that, it's either a lot of luck, which, is a lot of hard work, or you're kind of like gifted the path based on where you're from and who
Right.
you're related to, etc. What has this path been like for you? Did you go to art school at an early age?
I feel like I've enjoyed my journey, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I didn't go to art school. I always have my little running joke of I've got my MFA from YouTube. I feel like I'm blessed to be in an age where information is readily available and accessible, where I can just take the time out to learn and grow at my pace. I always feel like I'm an accelerated learner, like I'm always seeking information and willing to fall down rabbit holes. But for me, like I said, once I didn't do the basketball thing, I came back to the arts and I was like, okay, what do I want to do with this thing? I know I want to be a professional. I have a blueprint in mind, what I need to do to execute that blueprint and, make it a beautiful painting. So early on, I studied tattoo artists because if they're working with ink, I'm working with ink. What cues can I take from them to kind of execute in my work? And guys from one of my favorites, and one of the guys I studied early on was Mr. Cartoon. He had another apprentice in Lowrider Studios called June Cha. He's super amazing. So I'm thinking, hey, if these guys can do this on flesh, there's no reason why I can't do it on a piece of paper and at a high level like them. So I studied them early on, right out of high school, and then I did every oddball art show you can think of, doing shows where a band is playing next to me, and I'm thinking, okay, like I'm feeling like I'm having to yell at a consumer. I'm like, yeah, this is ballpoint pen and watercolor and blah da 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 da, and I'm like, I can't wait till I get to a point where I no longer have to do that, and it's more of an intimate conversation with a collector, client, etc. But fast forward to let's say 2020. I gained gallery representation then, and
Here,
yeah,
here or in?
here in LA,
Okay.
here in LA, and yeah, that kind of helped my career tremendously because it helped me understand the value of my work and knowing that hey, I remember selling these works for $150, $200, and it going up, but also knowing that the value of it's all in the the eyes of me, one, but also the collector, who will hold on to this piece and kind of tell its story long after I'm gone, hopefully. But yeah, it's been an up and down journey, and I've always said I wouldn't want it any other way. One, but two, I kind of want to share my journey with someone else to help them along the way in their journey. Hopefully, it inspires them to keep going if they feel like they're at a low point.
And I think there's a lot of learning and growth like built into that, where you start kind of creatively, physically, and then also from a sales perspective, and then how you grow that over time. If you just jump to where you are now, you've kind of miffed out on this like whole path of like growing and learning and also feeling like you deserve it because you've worked for it in that sense.
And that's how I feel like my transition from working on paper and just framing it, where I felt like the glass was a barrier. So when people would see it out, they're like, oh, this is cool. This is like great, whatever. And then transitioning from mounting it on panel to give it more of a canvas look and not having that barrier there, and people can engage with it more and build more rapport with it. That's kind of helped me as well, where people are like, oh, this is ballpoint pen, or, wait, what is this, charcoal pencil? And just having that engagement with people and sharing my story, it's definitely been a godsend.
And when you're creating the work, because you have these very beautiful colored backgrounds
Thank you.
and then the detailed, extremely detailed portraits in the pen, what's the process look like? Are you creating the backgrounds first and having a silhouette and then, kind of filling that in? Or and who are these people as well?
So the people are friends, family. Sometimes, like especially during the pandemic, I would kind of juxtapose different faces together just because I didn't have access to people at the time. And then for the actual work, there's only been one time where I've painted the background and then drawn inside, but I usually draw the image out first. I'll draw it out with a pencil, give myself a blueprint, then draw it in with my pen, and then kind of tape around my drawing, and then paint the background and go from there, or them. background illustrations or whatever I decide.
And how long-ish does it take to work on a piece?
It depends. It fluctuates. If it's a smaller work or if it's less drawing, anywhere from like a day to a week. But if it's a larger drawing, maybe like 2 weeks, give or take. I've been known to do like a bunch of works in like a month, like 10 or 11 works in a month. And that's only because I'm shutting the fun off and I'm like, all right, I got to lock in. So I'm waking up at 5, going to the studio from like 6 a.m., maybe going home at 1, and then doing it all over again for like a month and just locking in and making sure that I'm trying to get ahead. And it's taught me a lot about myself. And I'm appreciative of that discipline to pursue those goals and those passions that I have.
So when you're doing something like that and you're trying to get ahead, what are you trying to get ahead of?
That's a wonderful question. Usually, if I'm given a date, I'm working at the last minute. So like 9 times out of 10, if there's a show, what's this, July? If there's a show in August, all July I'm doing the works for the show. Now, I say that to say the time before is me kind of preparing, doing commissions, which I kind of relate everything to sports where it's practice, it's layup lines, it's me sharpening my tools. That way, once it comes time for the show, I'm obviously, or not obviously, but I'm a little bit better than I was the day prior. So me just trying to get ahead is making sure that I'm beating the deadlines I've been given to show for the showing or the fair or whatever have you.
And where are you creating? Do you have a nice studio?
Mm-hmm. I have a studio in Baltimore. It's entirely too much space, but I'm thankful because it gives me the space to have my ideas grow. I used to work in my kitchen, my living room, then graduated to my garage. And then I remember my dad telling an ex-girlfriend of mine, he's like, hey, he needs to get a studio, get him out of the kitchen. He needs his own space to work. That way you can have like a potluck, whatever. And thankfully he said that because I was just fine working wherever, because even to this day, I don't mind working wherever, but you also need a dedicated space to work, I feel like, where home is home and work is work.
And so what's it feel like when you walk into your studio and you're ready for a few hours of work?
It feels good because I still feel like the kid who used to draw on my dad's floor like with a yellow notepad and just would draw like WWF magazine covers and Beckett basketball covers. Like I still have that in me. So every time I go in the studio, that like comes out immediately. It's like, this is what I get to do. Like I'm blessed that I've worked hard enough to do this and I'm able to share my passion with people and hopefully inspire them as well. And that they also enjoy what I do on the back end. So I just feel blessed and fortunate every time I walk in that spot.
Yeah. And then at this point, you've done shows, you've done commissions, you've had your work kind of out there in the world. Are you taking stock of all the work that you've done? Is there an inventory collection that you have? So you have your own catalog and you know what you've made and where it is, etc.
Yeah, and thankfully, hearing your podcast, I've kind of graduated and have taken better responsibility in that pursuit of just the documentation, sharing inventory with people, PDF files, so on and so forth. That way I can look back and say, hey, XYZ was done on this date, this collector has it, etc. And like we mentioned outside, like your journey helped me along on my journey so much that I can't help but say thank you. And I'm so appreciative for the path that you forged on your way and helping other artists as well.
I think that's the thing as being an artist. It's like, I'm just here trying to survive and be creative and do what I feel like I have to. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you don't realize the impact that you're having on other people and other artists.
Mm-hmm. It's insane to think about because like I'm just out here existing and people are like, oh my God, like you've done XYZ, and I'm like, I never really thought about that. I just create, but like you said, you just don't know. But I'm thankful those people share that because it kind of helps you and kind of pushes you to keep going on those days that you don't feel like you got it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I struggle with celebrating myself and patting myself on the back and saying, well done. Yeah. I kind of come out of one thing and be like, what's next?
Right, same.
Yeah, like what's your relationship with that?
I'm obsessive. I'm obsessed with getting better. I'm obsessed with learning and just I'm in search of what's next. Like what else can I do? Okay, I did that. What else can I do? And sometimes it's like I have to take a step back. I'm like, man, you've done a lot in this period of time without kind of I don't want to say without a support system, but without traditional support of schooling or, the proper education, et cetera, which is fine because I'm always going to seek that information. But yeah, I always like, I work this morning, I'm going to work tonight. I love to work. I'm so in love with what I do that I just want to keep doing it. But on the flip side, the balance of that is like I play a lot of basketball as well. Like that helps me as well get that other energy out and just be able to have the balance, okay, that work-life balance that I learned about. I don't think it's difficult, but I'm trying to be better about it.
Have you brought those two worlds together yet, the art and the basketball?
Yes. I'm trying to think. There's been NDAs signed, so yes. I'm working on trying to do that in a bigger capacity.
So good NDAs?
Good NDAs. Good NDAs. But yeah, just that's always been a thing for me too, is just learning that the other creatives, other artists that I admire, them intersecting their passions with their art. So yeah, I'm like, oh, well, I love fashion, I love basketball, sports, etc. How do I kind of implement that in my work, or how does the things I admire, like how can they influence my work? And I've always said sport has taught me so much about life that, yeah, it's helped me get where I am today as far as discipline, work ethic, goal setting, teamwork, so on and so forth. So yeah, yes,
it's happening.
It's happening.
Okay,
thankfully.
I love that. And so, with your work being predominantly kind of portraiture, have you had a practice in the past of drawing kind of other objects, or being someone that works in different mediums? What's your kind of past creatively look like?
Yeah. Early on, I used to draw everything because I felt like sooner or later it's going to be helpful. So I would always go, when I was younger, I would go to Barnes & Noble every day when they open. I would just grab a bunch of magazines and draw just a myriad of things. Because I knew sometimes people want something different than a portrait, but I knew portraiture was going to be kind of not necessarily my way out, but my way through the door, or to get my foot in the door. But I did some landscapes way back when. I love drawing skulls, which kind of might be a cousin of portraiture. I just love drawing and creating. Like anything under the sun. I try not to hold myself back from creating any and everything. But I know the future for me kind of pivots away from portraiture, and I might start drawing birds or animals or whatever, doing plein air or still life, etc. But I needed an entryway for people to know that I exist, and I think portraiture has helped me with that.
When someone becomes a custodian of your work, do you share with them information about the person and who it was? And if you do, like, how do you share that information?
The answer is yes. For me, I like to build rapport with my collectors, and that's a constant conversation. I always think of, okay, the sitter, am I telling their story how they would want it, one, and two, am I telling what I feel, or not I feel, but am I sharing what I feel about their story in the piece as well? So yeah, just sharing those things and kind of getting to understand the magnitude of how this work got to their home is very important. I'm more prone to learn more about the sitter and feel comfortable and just have that conversation along with the collector. It's balanced. To me, it's of the utmost importance because that needs to be exuded in the portrait, is their story and the emotion that I felt and that I want to share as well.
Because you've captured this person at, this point in their life, and then they will sit with a family perhaps or a collector for the lifetime that they have that work.
Right.
And that's such an intimate kind of relationship, especially with a portrait,
Right.
because there's eyes there. You're seeing someone. They're not there physically, but they are in a way having a presence in your home. So I always think about that with portraiture.
Yeah.
Having those eyes on me and kind of in turn seeing this person kind of every day.
It's super cool because I always think, especially early on in this journey, that who's going to want to put someone that they don't know in their house? Like, this isn't a family friend. This isn't. But I kind of assume it's not assume, but I kind of think of it as my job to have that person, like I said, build rapport with the piece, that it's more of an emotional feel now, where they felt like, hey, this could have been me at a point in my life, or, I can relate to this story, so on and so forth. Yeah, that's just of the utmost importance to me, is people having rapport with the work and feeling the emotion that the sitter has in the work.
And on this journey, what have been some of the biggest hurdles that you've faced? There's some high hurdles there by that sigh.
Yeah. Early on, it was understanding, okay, what's my voice? What do I want to share? What's the work I want to, provide to the landscape of art? And then as you grow, I've always felt comfortable that I'm always going to grow. I'm always going to adapt and learn and implement that in the work. But now it's the other side, the business side, the art gallery side, and that's been tricky, to say the least, and just dealing with all that, but still trying to stay focused on your craft and focused on getting better. I don't think enough emphasis is put on, hey, just as great as you are as an artist, you have to be just as great as a business person, or, in marketing, so on and so forth. But yeah, and just learning that, I think, has been kind of a whirlwind, just because though I always look at the art world as the wild, wild west. There's no like regulations or anything like that, but you also have to be willing to learn and put yourself around people who will help you put yourself in the position that you want to be in. And then there's obviously, the money aspect. Yeah, it's a lot, but I wouldn't want it any other way, because I feel like I know I'm supposed to be here. I know I'm supposed to be sharing my voice to help whomever that's on their journey understand, okay, he didn't go to school and he's where he's at. If I don't go to school, there's another option. I guess maybe long story less long, that's what it is. It's showing kids there's another option to get to where they're trying to go.
Yeah, and not even just kids, I think, just people
in general,
as a whole. I was speaking to another artist on this show, and he says, something he doesn't like is that you have to make art to showcase the art. Mm-hmm. So, it's not just enough now in today's society as an artist just to make work. Yeah. You actually now have to make work to showcase the work, to promote the work, to sell the work. And that can be tiring, because you want to spend all of your efforts actually creating things. Yeah.
And that's my issue currently, is I work, I don't want to say fast, but I work so efficiently that I don't always forget to, hey, let me set up the gimbal, or let me set up the Joby to document the process and share and let people know that, one, I exist, and two, that I'm working, where I just want to make it, share it, talk about it, engage with people, etc. But that's part of growing and adapting, is learning, okay, this is the landscape now. And if you say you want people to know that you exist, then you have to do certain things differently now to do so. And for me, I know I'm not at a point where I can just fade to black and then put something out. I'm like, all right, we're good to go. So
I can relate to that. And I notoriously always forget to press record on things. For me, it's an afterthought. And this show is sometimes terrifying, because I'm like, I've got to press record, I've got to press record. And, I think it's like that within my practice, after, because I've just gone in very excited, I've made some work, and then I'm like, oh, I should have recorded it.
Yep.
And it's like, that shouldn't be the first thought, because the first thought is the intention of the work that you want to create and the excitement that you have there. Mm-hmm. So I think we all need perhaps that second person that can press the record button for us. But, I don't have that yet. But at the same time, I like that I wasn't precious. sometimes over the documentation of it.
Yeah.
But I just had fun and enjoyed the actual process and the practice of it.
And I look at it too. I've always said I wanted my website or my Instagram or whatever to kind of be a tool for someone to use as far as working with ink or ballpoint pen, whatever have you. So sometimes I think, okay, you need to document this because someone might be like you at one point thinking, hey, there's no information about mounting paper on panel or, certain drawing techniques with ink. For you need to share that so someone can have that information to kind of push the envelope forward and kind of advance, the process of drawing with ink. So it's twofold. Like I'm like, oh, document it. There's people out there who need this information. It's like, who cares? Work like you have enough things going on. Focus on your work. You're that's the most important thing. Keep the main thing the main thing.
So from a social kind of online presence, do you have a website? Do you work on that? Do you do social? Do you kind of ignore those things? What's your relationship to those type of tools?
I have a website, have socials. We were just talking about this the other day. It's like there's so many platforms out. I try to focus on the one that has the most engagement, which would be Instagram. But just having like a Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all of these things, it's like that's, to me, is taking time away from the work. And that's the last thing I want to do. I'm very focused on creating and getting these ideas out and seeing, okay, I like this, I don't like this, I can improve upon that. This needs a little bit more molding, shaping, etc. So yeah, it's everything for me. I feel like it's balanced, but I'm always thinking, okay, how do I become better at time management where I can, maybe spend like an hour on socials and then the rest of my day working and focusing on becoming a better artist, better drawer, painter, etc.
And so for the future, what are some of your kind of audacious goals?
There's so many. To work with certain brands that I feel like have the same ethics, morals, et cetera, as I do. But the main one for me is to be in the National Portrait Gallery. And I say that because it's one of those institutions that I've frequented over the years. And
the one in America?
Yes,
okay.
I do want to do the one in London. My parents were just there recently. Like, hey, we're at the National Portrait Gallery in London. I'm like, or the National Gallery in London. I'm like, oh my God, I want to go there as well. But the MPG in DC, that's been an inspiration for me and been motivation for so long. Just because what I do isn't present in that space, so I kind of want to showcase my work in that space. That way generations to come can see, hey, this guy who, didn't have much formal training, et cetera, is here, one, but it can, like I said, push the ballpoint thing forward because that's not present in the galleries, right, or the museum right now.
So other than that, what do you feel makes you and your work and your story different from other works and artists at the National Portrait Gallery?
I mean, the easiest answer is it's my work. It's my my skill set. It's my look. It's not in study, and that's the thing too. I've studied a myriad of ballpoint pen artists, from James Milne to Juan Francisco Casas, so on and so forth. And I always feel like my style is different from theirs, which I feel like everyone's style should be different. But having a voice for people of color, for the Black community, et cetera, to be in there and, to see, hey, this guy took something that's inclusive as far as pen and paper, et cetera, and is in this exclusive space and is kind of helping other kids and other people see on their journey, hey, it could be a thing, it could happen. It's me sharing myself and my pursuit and my passion and my vision for what I want to leave, or the mark I want to leave in the landscape of art, the canon of art in that institution, where people can, study it and share it for however long to come.
And so you mentioned, potentially working with brands in the future. Brands in many ways are today's patrons and
Right.
can give artists access to means and mediums that perhaps we wouldn't have ordinarily. What type of industries would you want to be working with brands in?
Oh my goodness. I can narrow it down, and you can always say all. The fashion industry, the car industry. We've mentioned sports already. I'm a huge fan of architecture. Huge, like my dream vacation is somewhere where there's a lot of buildings. Just admiring the structure, the detail, so on and so forth. But yeah, I would probably start with architecture first and go from there. Like I've just loved design for so long, and I think it's funny that the majority of the sports teams I enjoy, the reason I like them is because as a kid I enjoyed their logo, their design first, and that's what kind of drew me in. And then here we are, however many years later, I'm still a fan of those clubs just because, all right, I love their design, and here we are. Yeah.
And have you had a lot of opportunities to work with kids yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Back home in Virginia.
Wait, Virginia where?
Hampton Roads,
Okay.
Hampton specifically. Yeah, my mom used to teach at a school, so I would help there at Berkeley. But yeah, just having that foundation and my mother being an educator. As a kid, I always used to say, I'm not going to be a teacher, and my dad was in the Air Force. I'm not going to go in the Air Force. I don't think either one of them knew that, but I've always said that because that was their path. And then you fast forward to now where I feel like my journey is somewhat of being an educator as well as a student. So yeah, it's been a great journey, and just being able to speak with the youth and kind of relate to not having access to certain things and not feeling like you're heard. I just want to be someone that a kid can have access to and get information and knowledge and wisdom, and just, help them on their path. They don't have to be an artist, etc., because I always feel like our life's task is to inspire the next person on their journey to be whatever, to be great at that, because that's what helps this whole thing move and shake. So
I always find it interesting, we always look to the kids to be like, how can we help the kids? How can art help the younger generation? But how is it helping you?
Whew. I've been to therapy twice. Art, my work to me is my therapy. Like I sit there, and if I'm not listening to an audiobook, music, battle rap, etc., I'm sitting there thinking, okay, there's a Malcolm Gladwell book, Outliers, that I always think about. And he's essentially, long story less long, the premise of the book is finding the root of a situation. So that kind of changed my whole thinking. It was like, okay, if I have this issue, what's the root of it? Why is this issue occurring, or why is it consistent? And yeah, that to me is what I'm thinking about all the time. It's kind of problem solving. How can I be a better human? Just sitting there, just thinking about all the work I'm doing. It's like, man, these people are so amazing. I'm blessed to be able to share their story. Yeah, it's taught me so much about myself, and I don't think I'm a patient person whatsoever. But art has taught me I'm very patient, much more than I give myself credit for. But yeah, it's done nothing but teach me about myself, and I'm so blessed to be able to do it and learn more about myself in the process.
So within that practice of doing something that demands patience of you, it
Right.
gives you that time to reflect and kind of get to the root, or reflect on kind of issues that you've had, and then kind of get to the root of them and like dissect them in your head.
Yeah, I'm a thinker all day long. I just think. I feel like I'm an idea guy as well. And yeah, being able to dissect just certain people's process, certain ideas. I don't think I'm argumentative, but I like to just like sometimes play devil's advocate, or just well, maybe I should say I'm more objective than I would want to share or, is led to believe. So I'm always thinking, I'm like, okay, here's the pros, here's the cons, and just weighing everything out. I kind of like to sit there and think about things before I execute or share, what's going on.
And so as someone that's just kind of shared that journey with us, I've got a couple of last questions to finish up on. One is, did your other siblings go into art?
No.
Okay,
No,
so
it was just me. And I didn't learn until later that my mom was kind of in the arts and did arts and crafts, et cetera. I'd spend 30 years saying, oh, I'm the only artist in the family. And come to find out, she's like, oh, well, I used to draw. I used to do this. I had my own little shop. Da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, that would be great to know, I could have asked you more. I'm just thinking that I'm the only one in this journey. So I felt very singular in thinking that I had to kind of pursue it on my own. And that's never something you should have to do, but it's also something that I shouldn't think because no one else has done it. Everyone is creative in their own aspect. You can always learn something from someone who's either in the arts or not in the arts.
What do you think made her not even think about that connection?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I never thought about it. I wish I could ask her. I don't know.
Yeah. And then so just to kind of wrap us up,
Sure.
For you, Tommy, what is the point of art?
Oh man, I wish I would have got the questions before.
No, there's none of that. That means then I'm planning, and then there's mistakes. There's no planning here,
The purpose of art, to share, to document, to grow, to inspire. There's so many answers. There's so many answers. To feel, to medicate. I can't pinpoint one answer because I feel like it's so many things. I don't even want to give it one thing. But I'm blessed to be able to participate and share my thing in the landscape that's art.
Okay, I love that. Well, Tommy, it's been a pleasure, and it's nice to see you after so long. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of What's the Point? Recorded at Spotify Studios in Los Angeles. Check out our website made by Eat.studio. Grant Alexander Peters does our theme music, engineering and editing. Research and pre-show preparation are done by Vern Molidor and Joyce Adams-So from the Shantell Martin studio team. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving a nice 5-star review. Don't forget to check out the show description for more information on today's guest. And you can follow myself and the podcast on Instagram at Shantell_Martin. What's the point? I'm beating, you're beating, we're beating drums together. I'm beating, you're beating, we're ticking up the tums together. I'm beating, you're beating, picking up tums together. I'm beating, drums together, drums together, drums together, drums together. Rub your knees together, rub your knees together, rub your knees together, rub your knees together, drums together, drums together, drums together, drums together. Rub your knees, 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 make them soft. Rub your knees and make them soft. Rub your knees, lose control and cut off. Rub your knees and make them soft. Rub your knees and make them soft. Drum together, drum together. Cut off, cut off, cut off. Cut off you, cut off me. Cut off you, cut off me. Cut off knee, cut off you. Cut off knee, cut off you. Drum together, drum together. Drum together, drum together. Make it soft, make it soft. Make it soft, make it soft. Playing one, playing two. Playing you, playing who? Playing one, playing two. Playing one, playing you. Mountains high, mountains high. Flying high, flying high. But don't jump out, don't jump out. You might fall, might crash, might fall, might crash. Falling, crashing, falling, crashing, falling down on the floor. Falling, crashing, asking more, asking more. falling, crashing, rolling down on the floor. Falling, crashing, don't you ask for any more. Drum together, drum together, drum together, drum together. Rub your knees, rub your knees, rub your knees together. Drum together, drum together, drum together, drum together. Fall out, crash, roll down, roll knees, run, run, run together. You said this would be forever, you said this would be forever. Drum together, rub your knees, fall together. Drum together, you said this would be forever. Fall and crash, fall and crash, fall and crash, fall and crash. Drum together, rub your knees, drum together. You see the seas, drum together, rub your knees, crash together. Drum together, fall in the breeze, 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 fall in the breeze. The breeze will pick you up, break you up, pick 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 you up.